Thanks again for joining us here on Locked On Jayhawks. Don't forget you can join the Everydayer Club at lockedonpodcast.com/everydayer, where you can get the ad-free version of Locked On Jayhawks with all your major podcast apps and get an invite to the members-only Locked On Everydayer Club Discord server, where we're talking KU, where we're talking college basketball, where we're talking college football. You can join a bunch of the different links. And if you want the specific Locked On Jayhawks link, it is lockedonjayhawks.supercast.com. That's lockedonjayhawks.supercast.com. Show notes as well if you don't have a pen or you're not writing this down. Okay, KU football schedule is brutal. That's how I would describe it in one word. It's not just the opponents and the locations and when they're playing them. It's the construction of it. It's the lack of bye weeks for KU. It is the lack of any moment in time, really, of there being back-to-back easier games for the Jayhawks. There is no really stretch where you feel like, okay, they should be able to build up some easy momentum there. They are going to have to earn every single thing they get. If they want to make it back to bowl eligibility, I like the roster to do it. The schedule is going to make that roster really work at it, right? So they open up the season on a Friday, which at least does give you an extra day to get ready for week 2. But September 4th against Long Island. Fine, FCS game playing on a Friday, right? Get that extra day for the next week. Then week 2, you see September 12th against Missouri. So again, having the extra day there is nice, especially because Missouri will be probably one of the more talented, better opponents that you face upcoming this season. I don't know how they're going to be in comparison to this past year. They've had some players transfer out, but typically they have a pretty big NIL budget that they're able to reload their roster in a big way. And Ahmad Hardy is back, so that'll make it difficult because we saw KU really struggle in stopping him. It certainly is unfortunate that KU couldn't play one of their games in week 0 and get that kind of extra ramp up. But then you get September 19th. That's the London game when they're going to be taking on Arizona State. So you're giving up a home conference game to play in that one. And that is part of this here that, like, some of this is not KU's fault with the difficulty of the schedule. Some of it is the fact that your only bye week you get all season is after you're coming back from London is brutal, because that almost feels like, I don't know what the right answer is. But you know, what if 2 of the days coming back, what if 3 of the days coming back from London are more so just about recovering your body of playing a football game overseas, having all that long travel there and back? You know, and then it's like your normal bye week is not a bye week anymore. Your normal bye week becomes a condensed bye week. And that's the only bye week you get. On top of it, you're traveling to London after you play your biggest rival in Missouri. That might be an uncomfortable plane ride, right? But you play Arizona State, then you have the bye week September 26th. Then you're October 3rd versus Middle Tennessee State. And that one is tough that KU couldn't get that in week 0. The reports are out there that they appealed to try to do so. And that would have been huge for KU to kind of get that extra bye week later in the year. Unfortunately, because they play Middle Tennessee on October 3rd, that's the stretch where they played 9 consecutive games without a bye week. So this is where the depth comes into play in a big way for KU. I think they've done a pretty good job of adding, like, I think about linebacker, where they have like potentially, like 3 linebackers who could be backup linebackers who are like redshirt seniors. Having that sort of depth of older players is going to be gigantic to get through this portion of the schedule for KU. And who knows, maybe now they're like, hey, you know what, maybe we should try to add another couple extra bodies in the transfer portal just to try to weather the storm of attrition that we're going to be having from October on. But you play Middle Tennessee State there. Then October 10th at Utah. That'll be a tough one. October 17th at Kansas State. October 24th versus Baylor. So your one home game in October is against a team that you just have been slaughtered by year over year every time you play them. It hasn't mattered the coach. They got blown out last year in 2024 when they played against Baylor. They were getting blown out at halftime when they went down to Baylor, and was that 22? But they ended up coming back and making it close. And then all those other years, you know, whatever it was, they just have not done well versus Baylor. And that's your only home game in October. Then you're at TCU on October 31st. November 7th, you're back home against UCF. November 14th, you're at West Virginia. November 21st versus BYU, who is going to have college football playoff aspirations. And then November 28th at Oklahoma State, which I think will be an improved Oklahoma State team. Now, the normal disclaimer here that we go into this every year with the schedule and you look at things and go, this is manageable, this isn't manageable. And especially in the Big 12, things are so unpredictable, and a lot of these games end up being so close that, like, chances are, like, we're looking at some of these games, for instance, at Utah, at Kansas State, at TCU, versus BYU. Chances are one of those teams or something is like, there's going to be a team who's preseason ranked in the Big 12 that winds up not being ranked. And then there's going to be a team who's not preseason ranked, who's projected to win 6 or 7 games and wins 9 or 10. That's how it works. So it's almost a bit of schedule roulette, right? Like, for instance, 2 years ago, Arizona State was seen as one of the bottom teams of the conference. They ended up winning the league. That changed your schedule if you did or didn't have, which Kansas did, have Arizona State on the schedule that year. You look at this past year. People thought Kansas State was going to be really good, right? Kansas State goes 6-6. That became a little bit different on people's schedules versus playing Arizona, who had a really bad year the year before. People thought that, oh, well, Arizona is going to be an easy game for people. Arizona wins 9 games this year, right? So I will say this, as challenging as it does look on paper, there is a chance that the schedule does lighten up if somebody is worse than you think. The flip side to it is, what if Utah is as good as you think? And what happens if one of West Virginia or Oklahoma State turns it around? What happens if UCF, has all this Florida talent and turns it around? And what if the schedule gets worse, right? The other thing I'll say is this. I know it is brutal to have these 9 consecutive games in just one bye week. Kansas just had, 3 bye weeks this past season? They didn't make a bowl game. They went 5-7. I'm not saying it didn't help. Like, obviously you'd prefer to have the 3 bye weeks. But it doesn't guarantee success in the same way that having to play 9 straight games won't guarantee failure. So it's unfortunate. It's something they have to overcome, but it doesn't prevent them from still getting to a bowl game. All right, let's continue on. What is the biggest swing game in this schedule? What are the biggest keys? And can KU upset somebody? Toughest stretches of the schedule. We'll get to all that next. This is Locked On Jayhawks. Thanks again for joining us here on the show. Don't forget you can join the Everydayer Club at lockedonpodcast.com/everydayer. You can get the ad-free version of Locked On Jayhawks and also join our Discord server. Don't forget, too, you can check out Locked On College Football or Locked On College Basketball for your second listen every day, where you can catch up on some of the national storylines. All right, so what is the biggest swing game for KU in this schedule? To me, I think it is that Arizona State game in London, right? I'd imagine you're going to be underdogs against Missouri. Now, playing at home in a rivalry, maybe you're able to pull off the upset, right? That'd be pretty cool if KU was able to do that. And that could be a huge momentum boost to start the season. But let's say you are underdogs to Missouri and do lose that game at home. You would then be sitting at 1-1, assuming you take care of Long Island, which I would certainly hope so. That becomes a huge swing game. Are you going to be 2-1 or 1-2, right? And if you're able to win that game, I mentioned earlier, like, there is no easy stretch, right? Like, you look at Long Island and Middle Tennessee State. Those are the 2 games that you look at the most as saying those are gimmies. But there is not a back-to-back gimme, right? And so if you're able to beat Arizona State, then you're looking at 3-1. You're playing Middle Tennessee State off a bye. And then from that point, it's like, can you scrounge up 3 more wins to get to bowl eligibility between the home games versus Baylor, UCF, and BYU? Can you go, 2-1 there? That gets you to 5 wins. And then win 1 on the road between Utah, K-State, TCU, West Virginia, Oklahoma State, right? Maybe you're even saying 2-2 at home and then win 2 of those road games. The Arizona State game, to me, becomes the pivotal game to the path to bowl eligibility. Versus if you lose that game, what if you do lose to Missouri? Now you're potentially sitting at 2-2 through your first 4 games, and getting to 4 wins becomes a little bit more difficult, right? The other one I would say is the key point is probably that Baylor home game in October, because that could potentially be for KU to avoid an O for October, right? You're going to be underdogs at Utah, I would imagine. I guess Middle Tennessee State, but the Big 12 games, the Big 12 over in October, right? You're going to be underdogs at Utah. You're going to be underdogs at K-State. You've lost 17 straight. Ideally, they finally end the streak, but, I'm not going to pick it until I see it at this point. You're going to be underdogs at TCU. So if you don't beat Baylor at home, which, KU has really struggled against Baylor historically. That said, Dave Aranda is going to be on the hot seat this year. They've lost a lot of players to the portal. They did pick up some like DJ Lagway, who are kind of interesting. So we'll see what they look like. But that could be a gigantic game, right? Especially because even if you do win the Arizona State game, and let's say you're 3-1, But then if you go 0 for in October, you go from 3-1 to 3-5, and the outlooks of making a bowl aren't great. If you can at least win the Baylor game and you start 3-1, you beat Arizona State, you start 3-1, you beat Baylor, you're at least 4-4 going into November, going, hey, we still have 2 home games. We take care of business at home. We're making a bowl game. Or if we just win 1 of 2 home games, we just got to win 1 of 2 on the road. I think those become the 2 pivotal games for KU versus Baylor at home and Arizona State in London. I mean, winning at K-State would do wonders too, right? Like that would kind of swing it as well. And then the other question is that would make things easier to get into bowl eligibility is, can you upset someone? Who becomes the best? I guess it becomes difficult because like you're trying to look at, okay, what are the games that KU would probably be the biggest underdogs in? BYU is as good as we think. Probably BYU at home would be in that conversation. At TCU, I mean, we see TCU have seasons where they win 5 games, seasons where they make the college football playoff. So they're kind of a tough team to gauge. How good are they going to be this year? You know, how is Kansas State going to do in year 1 with Colin Klein? I think Utah looks to be a really talented team, and I'd expect them to be good, but it also is a new coach. So, you know, I guess you don't really know for sure. With Arizona State, like, you know, they're coming off a year where they weren't as good as the year before. They lose some pieces like Jordan Tyson and the quarterback, but Kenny Dillingham seems like a really good coach. And then it's like Missouri. But can you upset one of those? Can you beat Missouri? Can you win at Utah? Can you win at Kansas State? Can you win at TCU? Can you win at home against BYU? I'm not saying you got to win all those. I'm saying, can you win at least one of those 5? If you win one of those 5, the path to bowl eligibility becomes a lot easier, I think, for KU and how you maneuver around to get the 6 wins. And that's kind of where I'm focused at right now. Like, if this team, after all the losses they had, after not making bowl games the last 2 years, if they can just get back to bowl eligibility against a tough schedule when you're going to be playing at a reduced capacity at home, when you're giving up a home game to play in England, if you can get back to a bowl game, if you can go 6-6, I view that to be a successful year. I think they have the roster talent to do it. The schedule makes it a little bit more difficult, though. All right, that'll do it for this episode of Locked On Jayhawks. You can find our show anywhere you get your podcast, including on our YouTube page, where you can like and subscribe to the show. Don't forget to check out our KU Colorado postcast if you weren't up all night and want to catch up with what was going on that game, or even if you were and you just want to reminisce on KU getting a big road win. We'll see you next time for KU K-State preview right here on Locked On Jayhawks.